name's Terry Lynch. I'm with Oregon Ufology. I found myself searching for a passageway one day. And that passageway leads right across the complete section of the Cascades, which I'm sitting in front of at the moment. On top of Blind Peak. I want to make sure that everybody sees the type of things that we find in the process of research for ufology. I have located a couple that's sitting here on the top of Blind Peak. She's facing south. He's facing north.
The Middle, Cascadia Guides, LEDZ Production, in conjunction with Alien Strand Films.
Welcome to this episode of Alien Strand Podcast. I'm your host, Donald LEDZ, and welcome to today's show. Man, what a day, what a day. Well, it is a really nice day outside down here in South Texas. So if you guys are listening out there from all over the world, I mean, you know, it's different everywhere you live. I'm sure some places are freezing cold, man. It's probably colder than you know what, but I can't say. But, you know, just before I get going, just welcome to Alien Strand Podcast, man. I hope you guys are staying warm out there down in South Texas. Man, it's like freaking 70 degrees out here. I can't believe it. It's almost like I've been wearing shorts for the past 3 days. Can you believe that? I'm that guy. You know, you ever see those people out there when it's freezing cold and you see them wearing a jacket and some shorts? I'm that guy. Yeah, but hey, that's just the way I am. I'm sorry, man. I love shorts. I love being in shorts. I don't know what it is about it. Maybe it's because I've been raised down here, down in South Texas all my life, you know, for all these years. And you kind of get used to the climate. That's what it's about, man. But, you know, if you're new to Alien Strand Podcast, welcome to Alien Strand Podcast. Welcome to ufology. Man, I did meet a lot of people this past weekend that just passed, you know. We went and did a showing for one of our films, you know, because I am a independent filmmaker, right? And of course I had The Middle out there. You heard the commercial to it. And we have The Middle 2 out right now on Skylight 1 TV. So if you go look for it there on just kind of Google Skylight 1, you'll see it. Click on it and it'll show a few of our movies that are on there. It's a new channel that we started here with Alien Strand. You know, we put that together so we can try to get some independent filmmakers, you know, to come on board and just show their films on there, man. We love to showcase your stuff. If you are an independent filmmaker and you're into aliens, ufology, Bigfoot, unknown, paranormal, all that stuff, give me a call, man. Give me a call or send me a message. I will put a link on every podcast. It's going to say all my links. And when you click on that, it's going to take you to every single link connected to me, all right? So it's going to have Alien Strand Podcast. It's going to have Donald LEDZ. It's going to have me on Instagram, 3 or 4 pages on Instagram. You're going to be able to follow us even on TikTok, all right? So you'll be able to get all that information when you click where it says all my links, all right? And that'll be on this podcast as well. So just kind of, and click it when you see it. That's all I'm saying. Click it, man. And just kind of follow us as we go. As I was talking about, we did show our film called, it was called The Hive. So, and it's for free. So if you go down to Skylight TV, on that, all my links, you'll see it there. It'll be Skylight TV will be on there as well. Go check that out. And there's a few free ones. There's like 3 free documentaries on there. And then there's 2 other ones that, of course, are paid, right? But we're going to have all our new documentaries are going to be coming out. And they're going to be coming out on that channel first, right? So instead of paying the $4.99 or $8.99, you just pay that one price of $3.99 to be a subscriber. And that's all you pay. When the new movie comes out, you get to see it because you've already paid for it already, right? So, yeah, I think that's a better deal, right? That way, instead of having to pay the different prices, hey, that's up to you. But anyway, so we showed that movie, the Hive, the film. It's about a 10-minute short. It's about Terry Lynch, and it's kind of the prequel to The Middle, where it all starts for Terry Lynch, right? And we decided to put that little small doc together. We put it together and threw it on there. And actually, we threw it on it's a place down here in South Texas called Alamo Draft House, right? And what it is, it's a movie theater. They sell food and they sell all kinds of drinks and stuff like that. Anyway, they were able to showcase our film there in a little program out here called Film Up, sponsored by Heidi Hovda. And she's a big player out here in the small film, independent film industry, for the folks who's who. So if you guys want to hit her up, you can hit her up as well. But, I was able to show that film, right? People really were blown away by what they saw, because now everybody's starting to get into ufology, right? The UFO stuff, all the good things that are happening out there in what you're seeing now today. Before, you didn't used to see it as much as you see it now, right? As far as the ufology part of it, how everybody's kind of digging in deeper and deeper into these things, right? So anyway, we had an after party. We went to a small bar out here, and I ended up meeting other podcasters, right? And then really, really nice people, right? And then I met a few actors that showed their films, and I'm going to get involved with them as well on some of other projects. But I really like to meet people like that, because it's great to, when you meet somebody new, you never met them before, then you kind of get to know their character, they get to know you, and then you get to share your stories. Everybody had a story about a UFO, man. I swear to God. Everybody that came up to me is like, hey, man, I seen this thing, and I saw this, and oh my God, you would have freaked out, and and those are the stories that we always try to get involved in right here on Alien Strand and Alien Strand Disclosure Project, right? So if you can't follow us on Alien Strand Disclosure Project as well, you'll see it on all my links. It'll be there as well. Go click on that, and if you want to report a UFO, we have a lot of people there that are representatives in different states. They might be in your state, close by. They might be able to go see you or just take a report from you, okay? So, and it could be anything, Bigfoot, it could be a sighting, it could be paranormal. Even if you've had an encounter, an abduction, you want to talk about it, one-on-one. There's a person on there's called David Aliff. Talk to him about that, and then if you can talk to me as well. I'm real close to people that tell their stories about abductions and awful things that have been happening to them. Not just everybody does awful things, but a lot of them are hit and miss, to where they don't remember things, and there's loss of time, right? We always know about the loss of time out there, where people are just like, man, I don't remember the past 3 hours that happened after I saw this flash of light, right? Or I passed out, and then I wake up and I'm driving, it's like, what the heck is happening, right? Those are the stories that are just really almost unbelievable to folks, right? And we always try to get that information out, and it's not easy. It's not easy telling those stories about what people have experienced out there in that genre, in that world of abductions, encounters, even just a visual, that's what our films are about, CE3, the part 2, the middle part 2, it's on Skylight channel. You need to check that out, because it's a lot of visuals that people get, and they get up close to these things, and then things start happening to them as well. And a lot of people don't explain that, and because they just want to keep it to themselves. When I get it, I understand that part, and there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. But, there's just so much strangeness that is happening today. You know, we're already in 2024, man. And, you know, and how do you explain a lot of these things that are happening, you know, around us every day? Now, if you're part of Alien Strand podcast, you can go to our podcast Facebook page. You'll see me post a lot of stuff on ufology, Bigfoot, things like that, you know. And there's a lot of different things that have been happening to folks. A lot, you know. And there's been a lot of just strange sightings and encounters, you know. Of course, there's some CG out there. We've already spotted a few. Then we threw it out on one of our pages. I just wanted to see if anybody can spot the CG. Sometimes you have to do that in order to just kind of home in on who's really involved, you know, in working with ufology and who wants to figure out what's CG and what's not, right? And you have to do that. You have to do that because not everything you see is going to be real, especially like on Facebook, things like that. There's so much CG out there now. Now Facebook, they're actually starting to come down on some folks that now, if you're a person that does AI, like AI photos, AI videos, things like that, and it looks, and then you mix it in with a story of some sort, make sure you write down it's AI, because they're gonna, now what's going to start happening is they're going to start flagging you for that. Okay, so they'll take your page down, or they'll suspend your account for 30 days for false information. Now, just make sure if you start making AI photos, things like that, you better put on there that it's AI, because if not, they're going to start flagging you. We've noticed that they're starting to do that. I guess this week, because they hit me for some old stuff that I shared from somebody. We knew it was AI. We're telling people it was AI, but in the actual description, it didn't say, right? So we got flagged for it. Make sure that you're starting to do that as far as those kind of videos and photos, because now, you know, and I think is a great thing that they're doing that. You know why? Because now they get to come down on the people that have been throwing this fake stuff out there for everyone to try to believe that it's real and it's not. Okay, so just an FYI, that's what's happening. You know, that's something that's coming up everybody's alley already. I think it's even starting on TikTok as well. As far as one of our representatives, she already reached out to me and said, "Hey man, I started looking at like the UFO hashtags, the UFO, you know, UAP. I've noticed that it was in the billions, and now it's not even that high anymore. It's low." So, which means there's changes that are being made, right? The analytics are starting to catch up to folks, right? So just kind of be careful out there on what you're throwing out there, even us as well. You know, so it's just an FYI on the information, and that's pretty much like news that's happening, you know. Now, changes and strangeness is happening right now. Even today, right? So I started reading the first thing I do when I wake up, I don't know why, but I start reading the news, right? And there was a few earthquakes out there this today and this past few days. So I'm going to read you the USGS earthquake report for the last 30 days. So we had a 6.3, it was about 40 kilometers southwest of Port Vila in Vanuatu. That happened here a few days ago. Also, we had a 4.2 magnitude. It was 3 kilometers southwest of San Bernardino, California. I saw that this morning, okay? So they had a 4.2. And that's pretty close to San Diego, right? But it was San Bernardino. Also, there was a magnitude 5.3, 4 miles or 4 kilometers southwest of Salicha, Alaska, right? Then there was a 6.1 magnitude, 7 kilometers northwest of Taxisco, Guatemala. Wow. And then there was another one, a magnitude 6.5, 66 kilometers of Tarancua, Brazil. There was one there as well. And then last but not least, there was a 5.9 earthquake 73 miles west of Port Arthur, Alexander, Alaska. Now, that's 2 in Alaska. So definitely some changes are being noticed on the earth and the earthquakes, right? So when we're trying to figure out exactly, you know, what is it that you can kind of look at and wonder, I mean, what's happening below our feet? Because definitely there's some changes that are happening below our feet, right? I mean, if you want to look for this, you can go to our earthquake.usgs.gov, and it'll give you a lot of the information, of what's happening around the world on these smaller magnitudes. Now, there was one in Haseki, Japan. It was a 4.8. This was today. This was actually today. So, it actually shows a lot of smaller ones like the 2.1s, 2.2s, but then you start getting to the bigger ones, 4.8, 5.6, right? And these are the changes that are happening below our feet, right? And so we have to figure out exactly, why these changes are taking effect. Now, we know that the kind of like the polar caps, things like that has changed. Our Earth is in a wobble now, right? I don't know if anybody ever noticed that the Earth is in some sort of a small wobble. And you can go and look for it and just to see the pattern of the wobble that's happening to the Earth, right? And it's just like, I don't know, if the Earth is not completely round. It's kind of shaped like an egg. We all know that, right? So that's where you kind of look at it and you're saying, well, at first it was a nice spin, but there's an actual map at the very top, and you can see the different dot points of the very top of the Earth where it's actually showing the actual wobble. Now, the wobble has gotten consistently way out there. Now, it's a large wobble, right? So something is causing this wobble. We don't feel it, and we don't, because the way the rotation of the Earth is spinning, right? So it all depends on where you're at too in the world. And if you notice, like the aurora lights, they're starting to get like these different octagon patterns. I posted this the other day on Alien Strand podcast and Alien Strand Disclosure Project. It had this octagon sort of shape, looked like a honeycomb, right? There was like 4 or 5 different patterns of what it was doing, right? So definitely some kind of changes is happening on the Earth. Now, is this why we're starting to see more extraterrestrial crafts up in the sky? Bigfoot's starting to come out a little bit more. The animals. I don't know if you're a farmer out there, if they're actually doing something different. If you notice that your animals are just acting a little strangely sometimes, and you have to connect the dots sometimes. When you see that happening, it's a possibility that they're feeling something that you're not, because they're very intuitive as well. Their senses are much higher than human beings, right? And it's just the way it is. I mean, sometimes I wish we had the senses of a dog and a cat, because they can pick up anything. They're like little, metal detectors in a sense, but with the things around them in the different dimension, right? So, and sometimes I wish that we were that way, that we can see things that way. And, a lot of us can. And there's a lot of things around us that actually kind of keep our minds a little bit more suppressed than others, right? So you got to remember the processed foods that we eat. If you eat a lot of processed foods like canned foods, things like that, I mean, even your water it has a lot of fluoride in it, and that could be a suppressor to the pineal gland, right? And you got to remember that kind of it clouds it somewhat. Right, so you got to make sure that when you look for things, and you're keeping an open mind, kind of eat a little healthy if you can. You know what I mean? That will, and I've never really been like a yoga kind of person or things like that. But you gotta remember this: people that do yoga, and then people that do Tai Chi, right? Their minds are very open, right? Because their energy is actually flowing, almost like with everything around them, right? Because they're learning to tap into that calmness of the of human beings and just everything in general, right? The yin and the yang, things like that. So that's where folks, really tap into these things, right? Even if you sit there for meditation, listening to beautiful native music, that is playing in the background, and just kind of tune yourself out. I mean, if you have an opportunity, let me tell you this: I wish I could do this, man. I wish I lived in an area where it was very mountainous and stuff, and there was an area where you can go and it's peaceful. If there's a place out there that you can go sit on top of a mountain, maybe with a bench, some places have it, where you can go up there, go in them early in the morning, sit up there, meditate, play some of that beautiful native music that they have, and keeps you kind of calm and peace. And maybe you can touch in or tune into something, right? As far as like maybe an extraterrestrial, maybe something in a different dimension, right? That you're not able to do. But hey, man, that would be an amazing thing, an amazing accomplishment, not just for myself, but for anybody out there, right? And that is the strangeness of what's happening out there today, right? I mean, how do we not know what's changing out there, right? And it's you have to stay on top of the game, man. Really, reality. If you guys are listening today out there, stay on top of your game on ufology. Stay on top of your game of paranormal. Stay on top of your game of Bigfoot, Sasquatch, and creatures and anything like that. Stay on your game, man, because the day that you start getting laxed, it's almost like, let's just say if myself, I've been in ufology now for 5-6 years now, right? Let's just say I took a year off or 2 years and then decided to get back into it again. I would be so far behind on everything that's happening around me, right? Same thing applies, right? So if you stay on top of your game, your meditation, your yoga, your everything, then you're on point, right? You'll be right there, and your consciousness will be much more open than it is if you wait, right? So that's why a lot of people listen to a lot of these shows, Alien Strand podcast. There's a lot of good podcasts out there, man. They give you a lot of really good information. Now here in Alien Strand, we treat you like a human being, we because we love everybody. We want to make sure that everybody kind of knows the direction that we're heading as far as ufology and disclosure, right? I gave you some disclosure this past podcast. I don't know if you heard it. Great podcast about the Brazil 1996. You have to watch that podcast. It's on YouTube. Go check that out. And I break some disclosure in there. And I know other people have probably broken it too, but I show it to you in that podcast. So I know I threw a link onto the YouTube for that podcast before this one here today. So if you have a chance, go to the links and you'll see the YouTube link. Go click on that and watch the video, because that's where you're going to see the actual disclosure happen, right? And I wouldn't have been able to catch that if I didn't research it as much as I did, right? And then try to get into the story and then figure out what changes were made and why this had happened, right? And the disclosure part was that somebody released a video that had never been released before. So it's a lot of speculation, a lot of different things that people didn't know that was happening in the background while this lay dormant, and it was going to be more dormant, right? If this didn't come to life. What made this farmer, give out this video information on the video that he took out there in 1996 in the jungle in Brazil, right? Where he comes across this deceased alien out there that nobody knew about. All we knew about is that it had big red eyes. It was kind of brown, oily skin looking. It was about 3.5 feet tall, long fingers. It looked like a demon. It had some kind of horns on his head. And people were just making drawings and pictures and things like that. That's all we were doing. But until we finally saw the proof of exactly what this thing was, right? That was the disclosure part, right? And this is what I was trying to get across to folks when I was putting that podcast together. Now, please go back and watch that, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, you got to remember, that was Brazil's little Roswell that happened to them out there. So with us in our Roswell, now that would be amazing if somebody was to pop out with a film, right? And say, here it is. This is it. I took this video, or I took this 8mm or this 16mm film, and we've had it ever since. And here you go. This is what happened. Now that would be an amazing disclosure, because then we, instead of speculating, and that's all we ever do is speculate what happened in Roswell. This happened, and everybody got threatened, and blah, blah, blah. This happened, and the nurse saw it, and this person saw it. But there was no proof. No physical proof, right? At least with a video, an 8mm film, something that's more concrete, right? So if something like that were to break for Roswell, oh my God, everybody would just lose their freaking minds here, right? Because there would be an I told you so or I knew it moment, right? Kind of gratifying. If you really think about it, it'd be like really gratifying for a lot of folks. And what are you going to do, man? What's the government going to do? Well, okay. Yeah, okay, it happened. Now what? You know what I mean? That's pretty much what you're going to hear. It's not that they're going to do. A lot of these people are already deceased already. And you can't really go back and threaten anybody anymore and all that stuff. And if it happened, it happened. You know, and that's the strangeness of that story, you know, of how that came to life, right? And we always know that these stories, you know, a lot of times people are not just feeding you a bunch of crap, man. It's factual stuff that they're telling you. And even I said it before, there was a few podcasts out there, you know, that were saying, you know, I think these people were just making it up. Yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. But no, they weren't making it up because the video shows that exactly what that creature looked like, right? And you can't discredit things like that. You have to go forward with it because that's exactly what it is, right? And you know, there's similar stories that happened even 10 years to 15 years prior to that, right? And there's one, it was a case, his name was Gary Wilcox in 1964. This is around 10 a.m., April 24th, 1964, a 27-year-old farmer named Gary Wilcox was in one of the fields of about 300-acre farm in the Newark Valley, New York. He noticed something unusual on the edge of the bush. He drove his tractor to take a closer look. He suspected it might be a tank or a fuel tank or something from a plane, right? So he started walking up to it, right? He could tell it was slightly off the ground, but wasn't sure how it was hanging in there with no legs or anything. He thought it was just a tank, right? He was like, okay, got to be some legs there, right? He said, but when he walked up, he said, man, it had no legs or anything. It was just floating there. And described like an egg-like oblong shape that was about 15 meters long, 1.8 meters tall, and 6 meters wide, right? He decided it was definitely metallic, like an aluminum color. He says the surface was smooth, no visible rips, seams, and upon touching it, he goes, there was no vibration, no sound, no sensation, no heat, or anything coming out of the ordinary. He says, all of a sudden, two men that were about 1.5 feet tall came out from underneath her, and what appeared to be a metal tray about 4 foot square. It was full of roots, soils, and leaves, and bushes. They were collecting samples of soil on the ground. The men were dressed in some kind of metallic-looking armor. No parts of the body were visible. Wilcox said for that first few minutes, he didn't say anything, was unresponsive. And then one of the creatures apparently told him, don't be scared. We've spoken to humans before. Wilcox recalled, he says, their voices didn't sound like a voice. I couldn't describe. I couldn't understand what was said. But I can't say where the voice was coming from. He says, he claimed that they were very interesting in organic matter, as the place they come from was rocky and unfit from growing anything, they said. During the conversation, he learned that they had been watching out for our planet for some time. Wilcox said he asked the creatures if he could go with them. They declined the request, claiming the atmosphere would be too fine. They added that they avoided congested areas of Earth due to vehicle pollution, and apparently it interfered with their vehicle's performance. They preferred to operate in areas where the air was clean. So the men returned to the boat quietly. The UFO slowly glided and simply disappeared from view. North, estimated distance about 150 feet. Later that afternoon, Wilcox grabbed a 75-pound bag of fertilizer and left it near the tree near where the UFO had landed. When he checked the next morning, he found out that the fertilizer bag was missing. And it was the same day that another person named Lonnie Zamora was spotted in New Mexico on April 24th, 1964. So that's that police officer story that happened to them as well. So apparently this story is pretty much saying that they were the same extraterrestrials that met that police officer out there. I believe that was in, it did happen in New Mexico. So these stories of these people of strangeness that has been happening to folks all over the world for quite some time now. Notice they talked about that the pollutionary air makes their craft a little unstable. That certain craft. Got to make sure you got to remember there's different kinds everywhere, right? They were collecting samples, right, to take to their planet because they had none. Their planet was mainly desolate, right? That would make sense as well. Why they were where they were. And it always leads you to the answer or the question, are we alone in this universe? After hearing stories like that. And I believe these little extraterrestrial beings were talking to them telepathically. Because he didn't know where the voice was coming from, right? But he could hear what they were saying. And he could understand it. So just note that just by this story, they're just kind of saying that their planet's kind of desolate, right? Where they live, where they come from. I'm sure their planet has changes as well, like earthquakes, things like that. If it's desolate, something happened out there as well. Never knowing exactly where they came from or what planet they were talking about, at least they were here to sample some things that we had. Maybe they were trying to figure out how it grows, right? But they're able to get from there to here, right? Through space. Which we're still trying to shoot ourselves up in these trash cans with gasoline just to get to a certain point, right? And these things are just making it across the universe like nothing. Possible wormholes, right? It's just how do they get through so quickly, right? from one point to another to get here, right? And I think, you know, they're all these extraterrestrials have been coming to Earth for thousands of years, you know, and they know this place is here. They know we haven't really destroyed it yet, but they know it does make changes on its own. Frequencies, right? What I was talking about earlier. You know, the chi, the yin, the yang, you know, the part of where you start connecting the resonance, because the Earth has a resonance sound, right? And I've talked about that before, one of my podcasts before. So just kind of remember, we're all sort of connected in a way. We're all connected. And I think myself and Nancy Timms talked about that as well. You know, we talked about why are these extraterrestrials, when they come down, they have 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head, 2 eyes, a nose, right? They're built the same way as we are. Fingers. The structures are almost the same. Body movements. Because, and I said, you know, yeah, because they don't have 2 heads, 6 arms, you know, things like that, to where we're not, they might look strange, yeah. Some of them 6 feet tall, some 9 feet tall, some 2 feet tall. But we all have the same humanistic characteristics in our body structures, right? And that's what makes that so much more interesting, and, you know, just kind of makes you wonder, whatever made us made them too, right? Doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out, because then that would be completely structured differently. And everything is as strange as it is and as strange as it sounds, but it's just like our films, you know. I always put on there, seeing is believing. You have to see these things in order to believe it, right? When these people saw these things, they're going to believe it. And then when you try to explain it out there on these social networks and social groups and, you know, apps and everything like that, people just kind of make fun of you so a lot of times in these groups, right? And I've even explained myself a lot in these groups to these people that are just getting shunned, you know, all the way down. You know, I tell them, I say, look, even if a UFO or a Bigfoot was standing right there in front of you and you're taking pictures and video, ain't nobody going to believe you but you. Because you're the one that experienced it, right? And if you have an open mind, you're going to believe it too. You're going to study, you're going to research, you're going to know how these things look, you're going to know how they act. And then you'll know how to accept the things that are coming through these groups. And it could be, like I said, a extraterrestrial. It could be something terrestrial. It could be something from here. It could be spiritual, right? Something different in your aura and different dimension. People start getting into their chakras, things like that, right? So these are the things, before you make fun of anything, research it and understand it, and then you'll know it before you even make a comment, right? Because at least you know that you've experienced it. People that don't know are the ones that are usually laughing, making fun of you, things like that. Those are the ones that don't know anything. But if you're diligent on your research, on everything that you do, whether it's, you know, like I said, ufology, Bigfoot, the unknown, paranormal, anything like that, at least you'll know that you're way more on top of these people than the ones that we call trolls, right? Trolls will never understand anything. All they're going to do is troll you, man. That's it. And I wish these groups had better policing. We have like about 30 groups, I think, with Alien Strand, and we're all connected together with organ ufology, a bunch of groups, right? But we police it like Terry Lynch is the sheriff of all these. If we see somebody getting out of hand, we boot you out right away. No excuses, no anything. And then we put your name on all these other lists, or you're blackballed, right? You're not going to be able to jump in these groups ever again. So just kind of remember that before you start trolling and making fun of people and laughing. Remember, the same way you watch us, we're watching you. So be supportive. Be sure you're stand behind a lot of these folks out there that are trying to get their disclosure out there. And, there's nothing better than having people support you and know that what you're trying to do and know the disclosure that you're trying to put out there, right? So, stand tall, stand behind one another, work together, don't work against each other, and let's have disclosure. Let's make this happen, right? I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. It wasn't very long, nice short one. I didn't want to ramble a little bit too much, but hey, I hope you got the logistics of everything that I was just trying to say today. I got a little deep on you. I got deep. But hey, that's okay. That's what I like doing. I like to get you to think just a little bit, right? Hope you guys that are driving out there, drive safe, keep your eyes in the sky, but pull over if you see a UFO, UAP, pull over, take the video outside your vehicle. Don't do it inside. We don't want to see the glares or the mirrors or the glass and all that, because then we can't figure it out, man. We don't know if it's your air conditioning knobs or anything like that it looks like a UFO up in the sky. So come on now, get out of the car. Pull over where it's somewhere safe, if you can. If you can't, hey, give your phone to somebody, roll the window down, let them tape while you drive, or slow drive, It's happened to me. Oh, God, it has happened to me before. We were in Colorado Springs, man, and we saw something just shooting out of the sky, and my son was looking at me and looking at it. I was like, hey, grab my phone. And by the time we knew it, we were coming to a overpass, and then we went under the underpass. We got out from underneath it. It was gone, right? How many has that happened to you guys? Oh, my God. That has happened to me already 3 times. I don't know why, but it's happened to me 3 times just like that. But like I said, if you can, pull over, be safe. Hope you're listening today on Spreaker. We're live on Spreaker, live on Spotify. We're going to be live. We're going to have this recorded. It will be on iHeartRadio, Deezer, Apple Podcasts, everything like that. We're on 26, 27 platforms of audio, man. You'll catch us anywhere. Just to Google Alien Strand Podcast. You'll see what comes up, right? I've been telling you guys, do that, man, and it'll just pop up everywhere. So you don't have to really look for it. Just Google it, man, or even ask Alexa. She'll play you some Alien Strand Podcast. So, but until then, I'm going to leave links. Don't forget, I'm going to leave links to this podcast so you can find everything from us, right? On there. It's called All My Links, right? Check it out. Check it out, guys. But until then, you guys have yourselves a good day. Have yourselves a good evening. And have yourselves a good night.